In the shadowed heart of a Manhattan courtroom, where whispers of power and betrayal hung heavy in the air, the 8th day of Sean, Diddy, Combs' trial unfurled like a storm breaking over a city that never sleeps. The room, packed with jurors, reporters, and onlookers, buzzed with a tension so palpable it seemed to hum through the polished wood of the benches. No one could have anticipated the bombshell that was about to drop, a long-buried audio recording, a ghostly voice from the past, belonging to none other than Prince himself. Hidden deep within the case files, this tape wasn't just evidence. It was a seismic jolt that sent Diddy's high-powered legal team, Mark Agnifilo, Tenny Garagos, and Brian Steele, reeling, their faces betraying the kind of shock that comes when the ground shifts beneath you. The story began years ago, in the glittering haze of Hollywood's elite, where parties were more than celebrations. They were battlegrounds of influence, desire, and dark secrets. Picture a sprawling mansion, once home to the enigmatic Prince, its walls pulsing with the bass of a Diddy-hosted soiree. Not just any party, mind you, but one of those infamous gatherings that blurred the line between revelry and something far more sinister. Tyrese was there, his voice soaring through the night, while Demi Moore and Ashton Kutcher swung playfully on swings, their laughter masking the undercurrent of something unsettling. Beyond the velvet ropes, a world unfolded where the rules were different, where power dictated every move, and where security, your own security, wasn't allowed past the gate. That detail, that single rule, struck a chord with one attendee, a man who'd seen his share of celebrity gatherings. "I showed up with my guys," he later recounted, his voice tinged with unease. "But Diddy's people stopped us cold. No outside security. Just his. That's when I knew something was off." Inside, the guest list read like a who's who of fame: Jay-Z, T.D. Jakes, names you'd never expect to share space, all stripped of their usual entourages, left vulnerable under Diddy's watchful eye. Why? The question lingered like smoke, curling around the edges of every conversation. Why would a man so obsessed with control demand such a thing? The answer, it seems, lay in what Prince had uncovered. The man who'd once called that mansion home wasn't there that night. He'd lent his space to Diddy, but not his presence. Prince, ever the strategist, had a plan that would unravel in that courtroom years later. Hidden cameras, silent sentinels in the walls, captured every moment of that party. Every deal, every whisper, every act that Diddy thought was shrouded in the night. Prince wasn't just hosting, he was collecting evidence, a ledger of secrets he intended to wield against the man he believed was poisoning the industry he loved. In the courtroom, the air grew thick as prosecutors pressed play on that fateful recording. Prince's voice, calm but heavy with purpose, filled the room. "I've seen the payments," he said, his words slicing through the silence. $2 million to one, 1.3 to another. NDAs signed to keep mouths shut. This isn't just rich folks acting out. It's a system. It's calculated. The numbers matched financial records already laid bare by the prosecution, a chilling confirmation of Prince's insider knowledge. He spoke of a power structure that shielded men like Diddy, a web of influence that silenced victims and buried truths. And then, his voice dropped, a tremor of fear breaking through. "I'm making this because I'm scared to speak out. If something happens to me, make sure this gets to the right people. This isn't just about me. It's about everyone who can't speak." The courtroom sat frozen, jurors' faces etched with shock, as Prince's final words echoed, a warning, a plea, a prophecy. "If anything happens to me." The implication was clear. Prince had known the risks of crossing a man like Diddy, a man whose empire was built not just on music but on fear. And now, with Diddy's lawyers scrambling to counter this damning tape, the narrative was shifting. This wasn't just a trial about one man's crimes. It was a reckoning for an industry that had turned a blind eye for too long. But Prince's tape was only the beginning. The prosecution's case was a tapestry woven from threads of testimony, each one pulling back the curtain on Diddy's world. Cassie Ventura, Diddy's former girlfriend, took the stand, her voice steady but laced with the weight of years spent under his shadow. She spoke of freak-offs, drug-fueled parties orchestrated by Diddy, where she felt like a pawn in a game she couldn't escape. "He'd show videos," she said, her words trembling with the memory. Videos of me, of us, at those parties. He'd play them for others, to humiliate me, to keep me in line. One audio, played for the jury, captured Cassie's raw anguish, screams tearing through the background as she confronted a man named Sujit, who'd seen one of those tapes. "I'll kill you," she cried, her voice a mix of rage and desperation. "You saw it, and you did nothing." The jurors shifted in their seats, the sound of her pain cutting through the sterile courtroom air. Cassie's testimony painted a picture of a man who thrived on control, who used fear as a leash. She recounted an incident at a West Hollywood restaurant in 2010, where Diddy, in a fit of rage, punched her in the stomach during a private conversation. Usher, a witness to the assault, stood by, silent. So did others: Neo, Jimmy Iovine, Big Daddy Kane, all present, all complicit in their inaction. Later, in a car, Diddy struck her again, slapping her and telling her to shut the fuck up. The silence of those around her, Cassie said, was as crushing as the blows. "I was screaming for help," she testified, "but no one came." The evidence mounted, each piece more damning than the last. Federal agents, testifying about the raid on Diddy's Miami mansion, described a scene straight out of a crime thriller: guns, ammo, and what they called freak-off supplies, dozens of bottles of baby oil, boxes of platform heels, bondage restraints, and bundles of rope. In one chilling image, a knife was found wedged in a hotel room door, a silent testament to the violence that lurked beneath the surface. Drugs were everywhere: pink packets of ketamine, orange tablets stamped with the Tesla logo, plastic bags stuffed into a Gucci duffel. And then there were the motivational messages scrawled on Diddy's bathroom mirror. "You align in upward motion." A mantra, perhaps, but one that rang hollow against the backdrop of his alleged crimes. Cassie's mother took the stand, her voice breaking as she described the lengths she went to protect her daughter. "He demanded $20,000, she said, tears welling. "He said if I didn't pay, he'd release a tape of Cassie. I had to take out a loan, scrape together every penny, just to keep her safe. It wasn't about the money," she insisted. "Diddy didn't need it. It was about power, about breaking Cassie's spirit by isolating her from even her family. He wanted her to feel alone," her mother said, like she had no one to turn to. The testimony of a man known only as the Punisher added another layer to the horror. Sherry Hayes, an exotic dancer and former sex worker, described being hired by Diddy for what he called sexy scenes that stretched on for hours. "He called the shots," Hayes said, his voice steady but haunted. "Every move, every moment." Cassie would wince, sigh, like she was bracing herself, but she never said no. "I didn't see violence, but I felt the weight of it." His words hung in the air, a reminder that coercion doesn't always leave bruises you can see. And then there was Kid Cudi, whose testimony brought a new dimension to Diddy's alleged reign of terror. He spoke of a night when Diddy, enraged by Cudi's brief relationship with Cassie, broke into his home. "My cameras were turned," Cudi said, his voice tight with anger. "My dog was locked in the bathroom, Christmas presents unwrapped. He was sending a message." Months later, a Molotov cocktail landed in Cudi's Porsche, setting it ablaze. "I called him," Cudi testified. "He didn't deny it. He just stood there, hands behind his back, like some kind of comic book villain." The defense pushed back, pointing out the lack of direct evidence tying Diddy to the arson, but Cudi's story resonated with the jury, a vivid portrait of a man who'd stop at nothing to maintain control. As the trial wore on, the prosecution's case grew darker, more complex. A forensic psychologist, Dr. Dawn Hughes, explained the mechanics of abuse, how it traps victims in a cycle of fear and dependency. "It's not just physical," she said. "It's psychological, emotional. It's about breaking someone down until they feel they have nowhere to run." Diddy's team tried to discredit her, pointing to her lack of direct involvement with the case, but her words gave context to Cassie's ordeal, making the invisible scars as real as the bruises shown in court photos: bruises on Cassie's back, her legs, a gash above her eye. Yet, even as the evidence piled up, cracks appeared in the prosecution's armor. A key witness, known only as victim number 3, vanished days before the trial's opening arguments. People get nervous, a legal analyst remarked, but the timing raised eyebrows. Was it fear, or something more sinister? Big Homie CC, a former industry insider, spoke to Piers Morgan about the dangers witnesses faced. "This is how it works," he said, his voice low and urgent. "The closer you get to trial, the more things happen. People disappear. Evidence gets lost. It's not an accident." He pointed to another case, another missing witness, a pattern that felt all too familiar. The defense, meanwhile, fought to reframe the narrative. They painted Diddy as a flawed man, battling bipolar disorder and a temper he couldn't always control. "He's not a monster," they argued. "He's human, struggling with his demons." They leaned on the lack of direct evidence in some allegations, like the arson, and questioned the credibility of witnesses like the Punisher, whose testimony didn't fully align with the prosecution's claims of coercion. But the sheer volume of testimony, Cassie, her mother, Kid Cudi, former assistants, federal agents, was hard to dismiss. And then there were the guns, the drugs, the baby oil, all found in chilling proximity, as if Diddy's world was a house of cards waiting to collapse. As the trial barreled toward opening arguments, the courtroom became a microcosm of a larger reckoning. This wasn't just about Diddy. It was about an industry that had enabled him, that had looked the other way as power corrupted and silenced. Cassie's screams, Prince's warnings, the Molotov cocktail in Cudi's driveway. They were pieces of a puzzle that pointed to something systemic, something rotten at the core. Jurors, their faces etched with the weight of what they'd heard, were tasked with deciding not just Diddy's fate but the truth of an era. The trial was a storm, and it was far from over. Witnesses would continue to testify, evidence would pile higher, and the specter of Prince's voice would linger, a reminder that some truths refused to stay buried. In the end, the question wasn't just whether Diddy would be convicted, but whether the world would finally listen to those who'd been screaming for help all along.